Hello, welcome back to Improvement Roulette. Today we are going to talk about the tool DMAIC. So define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. That's what DMAIC stands for. And we're going to use the example of a tattoo shop. So every day in April, we are going live and we are doing a fun little activity where we choose at random a business improvement tool and choose at random a type of business. And we give some examples for how we can solve problems in that business with this tool. So DMAIC for me is a tool that I use in everything in my life. So hopefully you see some of you in these examples as well. I'm Amanda Zimmerman. I am a Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt. I've been helping businesses for over 10 years help make their processes better. So today, as I said, we are going to jump into DMAIC. So DMAIC is a structured problem-solving tool. It stands for define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. Now, when we look at our problems, sometimes it can be very overwhelming to know where to start. Or maybe we identify solutions really quickly and we implement them, but we don't see a change in what we want to actually see change, right? So this is a tool that really makes sure that you are solving the right problems, that you are identifying solutions that are going to have an impact on what you actually want to see change. Now, in DMAIC, in our define phase, the first thing that we are going to do is we are going to define what it is that we want to solve. So when we look at all the problems that we have, we want to select maybe one or two every quarter that we really focus on. So we select these problems that we really want to focus on. In our define phase, we decide what is the scope? What are we willing to do? How much are we willing to spend? Are we willing to buy new software? Are we not willing to buy new software, right? We really understand what it is that we want to solve. What is the problem we want to solve? In measure, we go out and we get some of that data. So I think it was yesterday or the day before we talked about check sheets. So this is where you might actually go out and have some people collect data for you. That is our measure phase. Making sure that we are making data-driven decisions about the problem that we want to solve. Now, once we have that data come in, we go to the analyze phase. In analyze, we are going to take that data, we're going to take our knowledge about the problem, and we're going to identify root causes. So you're going to do your best to identify what's really causing the issues. And since you have data, you don't have to assume. You can make data-driven decisions. So you have more confidence that you are going to actually see a change in the problem that you are actually focused on. So define, measure, analyze, then we get to improve. So we don't even start talking about solutions or improvements until the fourth step. So a lot of people, especially from an engineering background, they start with solutions. They've been told all their lives, never come to a meeting without a solution. So we are throwing that out of the water. We are saying, heck no, we want to start with a problem. And we're going to identify solutions that address those root causes we identified, that are going to actually change the problem that we want to solve because we have data to validate that that's what's causing the problem. So then we identify improvements. We brainstorm, we experiment, we get a lot of ideas out there, and we select those that are going to have the most impact with the least effort. And we start to implement those. Now, once we implement those, we want to validate that they actually have had a change. So we're going to go out and do that data check again. If you use the check sheet, you're going to go out again and have that team do the check sheet. Now, once my dishwasher is going off, apologies, it always has the best timing to go off during my live streams. So then if you did the check sheet and measure, you're going to do that again. You're going to go get that data again to validate that the changes actually had the impact that you wanted. Once that's validated, you then want to make sure that you control it. So you want to develop a control plan that keeps that process in control. So our DMAIC structured problem-solving tool helps us to walk through these steps so that we don't get so overwhelmed, so that we don't get so much confusion about what the improvement is and if it's going to have the impact that we want. So I really encourage you to try to play with this tool. Try to use a different perspective when you're approaching your problems. Now, we said today we are going to use the example of a tattoo shop. So let's say that we have a tattoo shop that's starting to open again. Things are reopening. So all over the US anyway, most places are starting to open up to more and more people. Now, they have this issue of understanding the restrictions and trying to find how they can have the most clients, but also observe all of the restrictions that are coming in. And so what they do is first they decide that they're going to define the problem that they want to solve. So they get the team together and they say, okay, do we want to increase sales, or do we want to increase the number of people that are coming in to the shop? Do we want to increase the clientele for all of our tattoo and piercing artists? Or is it only going to be maybe for our best-selling teams? Are we looking at during the week or during the weekend? So they identify all these things to help shape the scope. And they decide what they really want to do is, as much as possible, they want to increase sales. So they don't care so much about making sure that each tattoo artist or piercing artist has what they need, which, that might be a concern if you're not getting the balance that you need from your shop. They decide that they want to get the most sales possible. So then they go and they get some data and they look at their sales over time to see maybe where the highest profits are, where they're having the fewest people in the shop for the most amount of money, possibly because they know that with the restrictions, there's only a certain number of people that can be in the shop at a time. So they can take that data and do that analysis. So they do that analysis on it to identify that ideal solution and to identify times, root causes, where they had really low profit or really low sales so that they can understand why that was and try to avoid it. Because they have to make every sale count right now because they can't have as many people in the shop as they used to. So they identify improvements and they identify that they can stagger schedules a bit. So they can have somebody maybe come in for 3 or 4 hours, then go for a longer lunch, then come back for 3 or 4 hours. That gives them some split shifts or some ways of having more artists in the shop. They also decide that some of maybe their piercing services are actually more lucrative, and those are busier on the weekends. So what they do is they try to make sure that the piercing is something that's really advertised right now and that it's always available on the weekends. So the shop is almost exclusively doing that on the weekends to increase their sales, right? So this is where they're able to identify those improvements, and then they have to control them. So they make those changes and they see if it works. If it does, they want to keep making that happen. So they decide for the next 3 months, this is what we're going to do. And they set out a plan to monitor how they do over those 3 months to decide each month if that's what they want to continue to do, or maybe they have a new problem that they have to solve. Right? So using DMAIC is just such a great tool. Now, even if you're super into lean and you're not as into Six Sigma, which is where this tool derives from, you will get value from looking at your problems this way. I actually use this at home probably way too much, especially when I'm feeling overwhelmed about a problem. I stop, I step back, I say, hey, maybe it's not the time for solutions yet. Let me think more about what is the problem that I'm trying to solve. Right? What is that problem that I want to solve? So I challenge you today to try to think a little bit more in depth about the problem that you're trying to solve and spend more time getting data and analyzing that data before you identify your improvements. So step back from some of those solutions so that we can make sure that we are solving the right problem. So tomorrow we are going to talk about someone that has an Etsy store, and we are going to use the tool of the A3. No, well, that's what we chose. We got to go with it. Got to go. Etsy and an A3. So how can we use A3 thinking, which is going to be a bit similar to what we did today. So now we're going to talk about maybe a simplified way that you can use DMAIC, and you can actually get more confidence about implementing that in your little Etsy shop. Or I shouldn't say little, because a lot of them nowadays are quite busy and big. Here's my green pen here so that I can mark off that we did our live stream today. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope that you are able to action some of this and see some improvements with your business. I really challenge you to make sure that you are getting a little bit better each and every day so that you don't have to work so hard.